Hey everyone, and welcome to our warehouse management video training session number 3, Resolv WMS Mobile Preferences. When using Resolv WMS, each user has the capability to set different preferences for how they can review and access data on their mobile devices. Resolv WMS even allows you to have different preferences per mobile device. So for example, if you use a smaller handheld device for certain functions but a tablet for others, you can have a different set of preferences for each so that moving between multiple devices is painless. The settings we will see in this video can be adjusted to fit each user and device's preference to make maneuvering through the WMS data simple and efficient. So to begin, we are starting with the mobile login screen. Once we're on the login screen, you can see one of the first options we have here for different mobile device preferences is the language. Now, since you're not logging in yet and we don't know the user, this language will only be saved for the device, not for any specific users. But if you see, click in here, it gives you a full list of all the different languages. And if I select one, like Spanish for say, it'll refresh the screen, and then all the labels and everything will be in Spanish. So after you log in to Resolv Mobile, you'll see obviously all our different module menu options. If you come up here to the left where the little person icon is, you'll see we have our user preferences and settings menu. So starting with the settings, there's only 3 of them. We've got compact mode off or on, which when used will make some of the buttons on our screen have shorter abbreviations. That way, when you are using the mobile WMS on a smaller device, like maybe an iPhone or a handheld, that will save some screen room by, instead of calling it hide finished, which is one of our options, it would say HF, so for short. So it kind of saves some screen room so that when you have it turned on a smaller device, you don't take as much space up. So real quick, I can show you that. So when I click on turn it on and hit save, and I come to one of our menus here like sales order pick list, you'll see now HF for hide finished, QS for quick search, and all of our other buttons here are made much smaller. The icons are smaller so that, again, they take up less room on your smaller mobile devices. So real quick, just to show you, if I put it back, turn compact mode off, you'll see when I go back to that screen, everything's bigger and spaced out again, and all the full words, and there's labels and everything. So that's what the compact mode option does. And again, because you can do this per device, per user, if I have a small handheld, I can set compact mode on there. And if I have a tablet, I can leave compact mode off on that one. So you'll be able to change those preferences and have them save per device. The next option here is the color theme. This Belize is the default one. That's SAP's new skin for the SAP 10. You also have the option of blue crystal, which was what the previous versions of SAP's service layer did with Resolv Mobile. And you have this high contrast black and high contrast white options as well. I'll just check on one of those to show you what it looks like. So here's a high contrast white. Again, per user, per device, so you don't have to worry about messing up anybody else's settings when you want to choose these options and change things around. The last option under settings is language. Now we saw obviously on the login screen you could choose your language from there, but we also give you the option to change it while you're inside already logged in. That way you don't have to get all the way logged out to change the language if you needed to. And then also this language option here will save per user, per device. So as the other one really was just per device, this one could be per user, and that way you can set your language preferences from inside and not have to log out and have it save so that when you log in again next time or from a different location and you have these all set to the language of your choice, they will be in that language when you log in. So now back up here, the next user preference setting menu option is the user preferences themselves. So we'll start with the first option here, which is camera barcode scan. This option, when turned on, will allow you to use your device's camera to scan barcodes. So if you're using a tablet or a phone and you don't have an actual barcode scanner attached to it, or via Bluetooth, we can have the system use your device's camera. It pulls up a barcode reader, and that will allow you to scan UPCs and barcodes without having to actually have a barcode device attached to your mobile. Now, column popping is kind of a funny sounding thing, and when you just say it or read it, it doesn't make much sense as to what it may or may not do. But when this option is turned on, and you go to a smaller device, as of right now, obviously I'm looking through desktop here, and I have a lot of realty for my screens and my fields. But if I was on a smaller device, like this for example, then when I came into certain menus and drop downs, the data would all be combined into one sort of almost like paragraph instead of being columns. This makes it much easier to read on a smaller device. So as you can see in my lookup here, it's showing me all my orders here, and it gives me a lot of easy information and makes it much better to read. And when I choose one, also now the items on that document that I chose are also laid out in that same sort of fashion. So again, that column popping option is a very, very good option to have on a smaller device because it organizes the data in a much clearer and concise way of reading. If I turn that option off and go back into my pick list screen, now you'll see all the columns are back. And when I come into here, all the columns are back as well, and it just kind of makes the data really hard to read. So when you have a small device, the column popping option is a good one to enable. It makes the data much simpler to read. The next user preference option here is the default warehouse. If your system has multiple warehouses, you can obviously change between them while you're working on your mobile. You don't have to log out and back in. So you can set your default warehouse for this session or obviously for any upcoming session because this saves your preferences. Now, there is a setting inside of SAP for Resolv WMS that allows you to have users either be able to go into multiple warehouses or not. So if you don't give users the ability to switch between warehouses, then they won't have this option. They'll only be able to stick to the warehouse you've defined as their default warehouse inside of SAP. But if you do give them the option in Resolv WMS inside SAP to switch between warehouses, then they'll be able to access this option and choose their default for themselves. The next group of user preference options are functions that you can use whether you have them on or off in here. It's just that when you turn them on in here, they will be defaulted on when you're using the system. So for instance, if you have my pick list turned on or hide finish turned off, no matter what, you can still use both of these options. But just turning them on here means that they'll be enabled automatically when you go into your picking screens and so on. So for now, I'm going to turn them all on, and I'll show you real quick. So hide finished, my pick list, and quick scan, and hit save. So now when I go to, let's say, my pick list screen, you can see that quick scan is enabled, hide finished is enabled, and my pick list up here in the pick list lookup is enabled. So what do these options do? So my pick list filters out this lookup to only show me pick lists that are assigned to my user. So as you see, as I scroll down, these all have my name. And if I uncheck the filter box, you can see now there's multiple users listed here. So this is a good feature to use. If you do assign pick lists to individual users, they can have this turned on, and then they'll only see their pick list and don't have to sift through a bunch of different ones. The hide finished option, what that does is when I'm working on a pick list or a receipt or anything like that, as I pick or receive fully in my line, the item row will actually disappear or hide. Now, the benefit to this is if you have a very large order, or even if it's a small order, it means that as you pick every item on there, or receive every item on there, as they disappear, when you are done, there'll be no items left on your screen. So that means that once the screen's empty, the grid's empty, you know that you've completed your task, and you can hit finish. If you want to see what's there, what you've picked already or received already, you can unclick hide finished. You'll see the item is there, but because the order quantity is 1 and the picked quantity is 1, with hide finished is enabled, it will disappear. Now, as far as what quick scan does, that's a little more of a complicated function than those other two we just talked about. So we will be going over it in more detail during our picking training video. But the gist of what it does is it allows you to, instead of having to go to a secondary screen after you scan your item to confirm your quantity, it will just assume the quantity you're picking based on the barcode you scan. So if I scan each barcode, it's going to say I've picked one each. If I scan a case barcode, it's going to say I scanned one case. And that means I don't have to go to the secondary screen to actually confirm my committed quantity. It will just stay on this front screen here and increment my pick quantity by the unit of measure that I'm scanning. So again, it's a little bit more difficult to explain just in a quick video like this, so we will go over it in depth during the WMS picking video that we do in the future. So the last two user preference options here are our touch image size and our navigation application that you're going to be using. The touch image size in our WMS picking and receiving and counting screens, we have this touch option which is catering more towards tablets because it uses pictures instead of necessarily just item codes. So it uses the SAP pictures from your item master and it will display that on the screen. That just allows you to choose what size you want that image to be. Depending on the device size, you may want a smaller image or a larger image. And the navigation option is for our vehicle routing module, which can tie into mobile because it gives the drivers directions as well as gives them a way to drop off and have delivery signed for. That would be a topic for a different set of videos, but we do have a vehicle routing module. If you're interested, you can contact us for some more information on there. But those are the last of the user preferences. So those are it for the actual settings, where you can turn something on and off and that sort of thing. The next group of preferences that you can set up are actually specific to the screens that you're working in. So if I go to the sales order pick list screen and I come up here to my pick list lookup, you'll see all these different buttons up here. And what these buttons do, give you the option of choosing which field do I want to search by, which columns do I want to see in my lookup grid and in what order, and how do I want this group of documents sorted by, which column and ascending or descending. So the first one, search, for instance, right now the default is searching by pick list number. So if I typed in, 2831 and click the search button, it will find it that way. But if instead I chose to search by name and I typed in IW and hit search, you can see it finds all the ones with that customer name. Or if I wanted to search by, let's say, document number instead of pick list number, so for instance, it's a sales order picking screen. So if I want to search by sales order number instead of pick list number, type in my sales order number, hit search, and it will find it. So these, just like your other preferences, will be saved for your user and device. So the next time you come in to search, you won't have to choose it. It will automatically just be searching by that last one you chose. The little cog thing there for settings is the column settings option. So you can see behind me all the windows that I have. But let's say, I don't care about the document number. I don't care about the picker or the user. And I don't really care about the priority. I'm just going to get rid of all those and click OK. And now you can see my grid is a lot cleaner with a lot less columns. And as I said, we can also change the order around. So let's say I want the customer name to be the first column. I would just click on it and then arrow it up to where I want it to go and hit OK. And now you can see the customer name here is first, and then the pick list, and so on and so forth. So that allows you to, again, choose which columns you want to and do not want to see, as well as what order they will be in the grid. And lastly, the two arrows will allow you to choose which column to sort the entire data by. So if I want to sort it by, let's say, due date instead of pick list number, and I want to sort it ascending so that the oldest is first, I would click OK. And now you can see my oldest order here is at the top, and the numbers are not in the order they are anymore. It's the due date that's driving the sort. Change it back to descending, and now the newest one's on top. So these options will be in pretty much every screen you're working in when there's a document kind of lookup like this. You'll have the ability to choose how do you want to search, how do you want the columns laid out, and how do you want it sorted. Now coming into an actual grid of one of the documents you'll be working on, you have two similar buttons that you'll notice we just looked at. You'll have the little cog gear thing, which is the settings. So again, now within the grid of the items I'm picking, I can choose which fields I want to see. So if I don't really care about the BP code or the, let's say, line number or the item description, I can uncheck those, click OK, and now again you can see I have less columns. This can be very helpful again on smaller devices. We looked at that column popping and the compact mode options, but even still, if there's data on here you do not want to see, feel free to remove it because again it's only going to be for your user and your device. You're not going to affect anybody else's choices. And then we have the sort option as well. Again, you can choose how you want it sorted by which of the columns you have enabled and ascending or descending. So those same options, except for search, which really wouldn't make sense over here, are also here in the actual main grid when you're doing your picking or receiving. Again, this is something that's going to be in multiple screens throughout Resolv WMS, so you can set up each one a little bit differently as well. If there's certain fields you want to see in a PO but don't want to see on an SO, you can have those set differently, and then it will work that way for you each time you log back in. So that concludes our WMS Mobile Preferences video. As you saw, there's a lot of different options from column sorting to languages to display and search options that you can enable or disable or edit to your needs. Again, they're only options for your user and your device. You don't have to worry about messing up anybody else's preferences. You can set them how you want to, and you can work your mobile devices the way you want to work without fear of messing up anybody else's devices. Thanks, and I hope you enjoyed the video.